Hi. What's your name?
Liz.
Hi, Liz. I'm Jessica. It's nice to meet you.
You too.
So what are you doing today?
This past weekend, my parents had come bail me out of jail. I have to go to court in a couple of weeks. But my mom was like, you know what, the court's just going to make you go to therapy anyway, probably. So why don't you just get a head start now and just go to therapy before the judge even tells you that you have to. So this is why I'm here. I know it sounds so stupid. Like, I'm 27 years old and like my mom is still telling me what to do, but I still live with my parents. They still kind of take care of everything for me. So.
Well, first of all, I just want to say it's a really hard decision sometimes to come to therapy. It's not so easy to just make such a big decision to open up to somebody about stuff that's going on in your life. So thanks for coming in. And I don't want you to feel at any point embarrassed. I know that sometimes things happen in our lives that can feel really difficult and embarrassing. And I know you said like you're 27 and mom's still kind of bailing you out of things, but it's okay to be who you are in here, and you don't have to worry about any kind of judgment. That's, I'm not here for that. So why don't you tell me a little more about what brought you in terms of the incident?
Well, we were all out one night the other night at my best friend's bachelorette party. It was fun. Like, we were all drinking and stuff, but I obviously went above and beyond, like I always do. I'm like the party girl.
So is that something that kind of happens pretty often? You said always, I go above and beyond.
Yeah, ever since I was 16, I was like always that girl at the party. You know what I mean? Like, how every party there's always like that girl that is like stumbling everywhere and like puking or like making out with some guy. Just the hot mess. Like that's definitely me, and that's been me for 10 years, and that's just like part of who I am now. But it's not even just at parties. Like, I drink, I pretty much drink every day. Like, I don't get shit-faced every day, but I definitely, like, I'll come home from work at night, have 3 or 4 beers, and then on the weekends I'll just go all out, like. But no, I mean.
So yeah, back to the night that the arrest happened. Just tell me a little more about kind of what led up to that. Like, yeah, just if you can describe that for me.
Well, I was trashed. Probably more so. I mean, we were all kind of like, pretty much everyone was at least buzzed, but obviously I was like, definitely like stumbling around, like mouthing off to people, getting in people's faces, being obnoxious. Like, I know that now. I was in such denial before about how I used to get when I would party. Like, my friends would tell me, like, you're really obnoxious, and I'd be like, no, I'm just like having fun. Like, I'm funny. I'm like, but no. But anyway, it's all a little bit of a blur. So I'm sorry if it's gonna take me a few minutes to like kind of get everything together.
Okay, we have plenty of time. Don't worry about it. I just want to get a good picture. I know it's probably unpleasant to revisit, so I appreciate you sharing with me. It's important for me to kind of get a picture of what happened. That led up to that. It sounds like a pretty big thing that happened, so I want to just kind of understand what happened there, and maybe we can kind of talk a little bit more about in general after that. So you said you were at a bachelorette party, everybody was kind of drinking and
well, so what happened was my friend had driven us in her SUV to the bar, and she was going to be the designated driver. And she parked across the street from the bar we were at. And so when we were all coming out, we saw a cop putting a ticket on her car. But she was parked completely legally. Like, there was no sign anywhere. We weren't in front of a hydrant. Like, it was fine.
Yeah, that's pretty frustrating. Boston cops can be a little harsh with the tickets. It's happened many times.
No, and we were pissed, and my friends, like, I remember, like, I was kind of like going off. I was like that's bullshit. Like, she's parked completely legally, like, that's not fair. And it was gonna be a $100 ticket too. And so I went up to the cop and I was, like, I wasn't gonna, like, do anything. Like, I'm not some, like, lowlife who's gonna start, like, assaulting, like, a cop or, like, but I guess I was, like, getting too close to the cop. I guess I was, like, in his space or whatever, and he looked at me and was like, you need to take a step back. And I just felt really threatened, like, just like the way that he was, like, yelling at me and stuff. I was just like, no. And from what my friend told me, like, I, like, kind of got in his face, and he was like, if you don't back up in 2 seconds, like, you're under arrest.
So you don't remember this at all?
Not really. A little bit. I supposedly spit in the cop's face, and that's when he.
Oh, wow.
That's when he, like, threw me on the ground and put me in handcuffs and, like, threw me in the car. And I just remember waking up in a cell. Like, my head was killing me. My parents were there, and they just looked absolutely devastated. And that's all I remember. I tried to call my friends, like, when I got my phone call, I tried to call my friend who was at the party just to get an idea of what happened, but she didn't pick up. But then I found out later. I was able to talk to one of my other, like, acquaintances on the phone, and she told me what happened. My friends want nothing to do with me now. They were, like, so embarrassed, and you know, they said that, like, I ruined, like, the bachelorette party, like, it was supposed to be a fun night, and I just made it so chaotic. And just hearing that, like,
that can be tough to hear. You know, I know disappointment and feeling guilt and things like that. Those are some pretty tough emotions. Tell me a little more about that. Have you felt like that at any time before with friends or family, or is this kind of the first time that's happened for you?
I mean, yeah, like, sometimes, well, I don't know. I mean, I feel guilty about the fact that, like, I'm pretty spoiled. Like, I'm lucky. My parents do really well, and I'm able to kind of, you know, like, I live with them, and they, you know, my mom does my laundry, my dad takes care of my bills, so, like, I feel guilty about that, because all my friends are, like, you know, like, out working and getting their masters, and they're all so stressed out, and so I don't know. And I just have, like, a stupid job, like, a part-time job at this cafe. And,
what kind of cafe is it? What do you do there?
I'm a barista. It's like a little, it's in my town. It's called Lucy's. It's, you know, it just has, like, coffee, sandwiches, kind of like Starbucks, just like a, you know.
It's pretty, I know that when you have a job like that, you have to kind of be really social and bubbly and outgoing and kind of in a good mood. Is that kind of?
Well, to be honest, my dad's best friend got me the job. So, I don't know. I mainly just, like, make the drink. Like, I don't really, like, take orders from people. I just kind of, like, make the drinks and don't interact a whole lot. I'm not really, like, good at that. Like, I'm good at that, like, with my friends and stuff. Like, I'm, like I said, I'm kind of, like, the outgoing party girl. But, like, strangers and stuff and people I don't know, I'm pretty, like, reserved with, I guess.
So, after the incident, when did this happen? How long ago did it happen?
This was last weekend.
Okay. So it hasn't been too long. Let's talk about how you felt since it happened. What kind of, like, thoughts and feelings have you been having since it happened last weekend? Tell me a little about what's been going through your head.
I feel really paranoid because, like, I haven't really gotten the chance to talk to my friends about it at all.
Yeah.
And I feel like they're ignoring me because I feel like they just want nothing to do with me. And I keep, you know, I'm, like, constantly, like, on Facebook and, like, on Twitter, like, seeing if, like, they, you know, like, trying to see, like, what they're up to and stuff, and if they're doing things without me, and they are. Like, I know for a fact they're all out together, and I'm not being invited, and so that's all I can focus on, the fact that, like, I know that they're mad at me, I know that I, like, screwed everything up, they probably are just so over me, like, you know, in my late 20s, like, here I am, just, like, causing scenes at bars.
Sounds like friendship's really important to you. Tell me a little more about your friends and kind of what draws you to them and what you guys do together. Tell me a little more about friends.
Well, you know, I had, like, the perfect, you know, I moved when I was in middle school. I moved from a town in Stoneham to, I moved from Stoneham, Massachusetts to Reading, Massachusetts, and And, you know, it was a really hard time to move, like being in middle school and stuff. Like I had to leave the friends that I had in Stoneham, and I had to make new friends in Reading. But it was actually nice because like I was able to make friends like right away on my first day of school. Like I fit right in with like this group of girls, and I mean from that point on we just did everything together.
So these are longtime friends.
Yeah. And
it must be pretty nice to have kind of a core group, you know, that you guys have each other's backs.
yeah. Yeah, no, we do, and you know, I was always kind of like jealous of them because as much as like yeah, like you know, they always considered me like the rich one out of all of them and stuff. I don't know. I always just liked how. I guess I was always just jealous of like how smart they were. Like they were all like they got straight A's in school. You know, always talking about like college, and now they're all getting their masters in something important. And so I don't know. Like I always just kind of like never matched up to like their level of like intelligence, I guess. So I don't know. And a therapist before said that I overcompensate for that by being like really social and outgoing, but then that turns into like using alcohol to be social and outgoing. And this all started in middle school. Like there was this one night at the sleepover where we all drank and got drunk, and like I mean it was, you know, I mean I'm sure at that time it was like 3 beers.
How old were you at that point?
13.
13.
Yeah, and like we all got like drunk, but it was only like 3 beers. I mean now it's like I would, you know, 3 beers like wouldn't even get me buzzed probably, but so it like wasn't a big deal.
Okay.
But then
was that your first experience with alcohol?
I think so. Yeah, I think maybe like when I was a little kid, my dad gave me a sip of beer or whatever.
Yeah, it's a little different, I think.
Yeah.
So tell me a little more in terms of the friendships, because I'm really curious. It seems like that's a pretty important part of your life. So what do you guys do together as a group when you're out, or well, at all?
I mean, lately, all we were doing for a while was just like going out on the weekends. Like after we turned 21, that's all we wanted to do. Occasionally we'll meet up for brunch or whatever, but I feel like most of our friendship is based on like kind of going out and partying.
Yeah, so it sounds like you guys are a pretty social bunch. Do you ever have times where you hang out and you're not drinking, or is that kind of more of a focal point?
Yeah, I mean, every once in a while. I mean, they're all so busy with school and stuff. Everyone has these like different schedules, so it's hard to find the time. And the most convenient times are on like the weekends at night, and so that's why we all go out and party and stuff.
So what do you do when you're not with friends or when you're not working? Tell me a little more about like what a typical day or a typical weekend might look like for you.
I drink. I sleep in, you know. I mean, my hours at the cafe are like 4 to 10, so I'll sleep till like 3 every day, basically. Go to work, come home, have a few beers, smoke some weed. That's pretty much it. Like,
how long has that been kind of your routine?
Probably since we all graduated high school and they all went to college. And
can you remember a time when you had other kind of hobbies or interests that didn't involve drinking, or? It's okay, it can take a little time, but I feel like most people, you know, and I work with people a lot who, you know, have used substances and are kind of struggling with similar things, you know, whether it's alcohol or drugs or something like that. I see this a lot, and I feel like a really common thread is that, you know, we all have things that we do for fun or for pleasure, and sometimes that can get lost when we're, you know, have other priorities in life, or when we're, you know, using substances to kind of, you know, as a regular thing. So I'm just wondering, you know, if you can think back to maybe the last time you were really feeling really happy and good and not needing alcohol, and you know, if you could tell me kind of, like, what would you do for fun? What made you feel good?
Well, I was seeing this guy for a while, and I met him at a bar, but he was really cool, and like we went to 6 Flags, and like that was so much fun. I mean, I know like it was a while ago, maybe like a couple couple of years ago, but I was so happy because like I really liked this guy, and it was nice like hanging out with the guy, like just going on a legit like date, like in the daylight. Like most of like the time any kind of like interactions I have with guys involve like just talking to them in bars and like either going home with them or like making out, and then it's like you never hear from them again. So it was just nice being with that guy like in broad daylight, like actually doing something normal. Like I haven't had that in a while.
I notice it's really hard. I've asked, I'm trying to get a read on kind of like things that are pleasurable and fun for you. And I notice it seems really hard for you to kind of tell me about that. I'm wondering, can you like, is it hard to think about a time before alcohol was kind of the big deal, the big thing?
Yeah, kind of. I don't know, like I used to I danced for a while, which, I don't know, that was kind of something that like every little girl did.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was whatever. I guess I was pretty good at it. Like I was the first one in my dance class to get like a solo one year, which was cool. So I guess I did something right, but I don't know, it's kind of irrelevant now.
I don't think so. I think sometimes those little accomplishments, or they might seem little to us, but they're probably a pretty big deal to the people around us. And it can be really kind of fulfilling to think about that, to know that if that's something that you really stood out at and really excelled at. What would it be like to be dancing? Like, tell me a little more about that. Like, what?
I felt pretty because I remember the leotard I had was like really, like I loved it. It was like hot pink and like it had like some sparkles on it, and anytime like I would be at dance practice and like you'd be obviously dancing in front of the mirror, I just felt really like pretty. I don't know.
It's a pretty important feeling for us all to kind of feel, attractive or beautiful.
I haven't felt that way in a while, but
I noticed you mentioned something about guys, meeting guys in bars and kind of, your relationships with guys. Tell me a little more about that, about kind of what your relationships have been like, or, interactions with guys. I noticed you said, you looked a little sad when you said, that you kind of meet them or, sometimes go home with them and then not really hear from them again. Tell me a little more what that's like for you.
I don't know, like when I'm out in a bar and stuff and I'm like drinking and I feel really confident, like I feel like I can go up to a guy and just talk to them and be flirtatious, and then one thing leads to another, and then they're like, oh, you want to come back to my place, and then we do whatever. So yeah, like in the moment, I feel good about myself, but I know that like I don't have that kind of confidence when I'm not drinking. So it's except for that one time where I went to like an amusement park with that guy and like that was fun, but I don't know.
One thing I heard you say, when you told me about the amusement park and how fun that was, and believe me, that sounds pretty fun. I love roller coasters, so. I had asked you about when's the last time you felt really happy and like you were doing something fun. And it's interesting that you mentioned that you were like on a date and kind of feeling really valued and being able to do something fun like during the day and not that typical routine of at nighttime and drinking. And it seemed to kind of, I could see the happiness on your face when you talked about it. Is a relationship something that seems really important to you, or something you'd like to work towards?
Yeah, yes and no. I like the idea of it, but I know that like the position I'm in right now, I don't know what guy would really want that. Like I know guys like if like a girl knows how to have fun and kick back and have a couple of beers, but guys don't want to be. They probably want to hook up with you if you're like, drunk. If he's drunk and you're drunk, it's like, I guess it works. I don't know, but like, no guy wants to be with a girl like me who's who's just like out of control, or who drinks like by herself, and I don't know. So yeah, I like the idea of it, but I just know that the position that I'm in right now, I know that it's not realistic. But yeah, like I want that. Like I want like the Notebook, like fantasy.
I think
would
a lot
love
of
that.
people do.
Yeah.
I remember watching that movie and crying my eyes out when I was a teenager. You know what? So why don't we? So what I'd like to do at this point, I mean, first of all, again, I want to say I'm really glad that you came in. I think, especially considering the legal situation that's come up, it's a really smart idea to be kind of proactive about seeking out help and stuff. And I know it can be a little intimidating. And what I want to kind of do right now, if you're okay with it, is kind of do a little bit of a screening with you. It's basically what it does is kind of give me an idea of how often you're drinking, and kind of, it's a scale, and it kind of gives me a better picture of like what role the alcohol use plays in your life. And so that way, we can kind of talk together about basically what picture we have of that. Would that be okay with you? Okay. So I'm just going to ask you a few questions, and we'll talk about it right after. It should only take a couple minutes.
Okay.
All right. So, how often do you have a drink that contains alcohol? Would it be never, monthly, 2 to 4 times a month, 2 to 3 times a week, or 4 or more times a week?
4 more times a week.
Okay. And when you're drinking, how many drinks do you typically have in a day?
4 or 5.
Okay. My pen seems to be out of ink. Okay. And how often do you have 6+ drinks on one occasion, like in one night?
Like 3 times a week.
Okay. How often during the last year have you found that you were not able to stop drinking once you had started? So like, that would be like a night that you're out or that you're at home and you're drinking and you kind of think, gee, maybe I should stop, but you kind of feel like you can't.
Pretty much every time. Like, what are my options again? Like, what am I
I'm just kind of letting you, but since you're, like never, monthly, weekly, daily, weekly. How often during the last year have you failed to do what was normally expected from you because of drinking?
Weekly.
Just to be clear, this is a pretty general thing. That kind of would include maybe being late to work, not showing up to work, missing a family thing, or stuff like that. How often during the last year have you been unable to remember what happened the night before because you had been drinking, or blackout?
How often in the last year?
Yep.
Weekly, probably.
Okay.
Maybe not every, like, on average, yeah, weekly. Probably not every week, but like,
Okay.
like
Stay
3 weeks
closer
out
to-
of the month. Or
Okay.
something, yeah.
Alright. How often during the last year have you needed a drink first thing in the morning to get yourself going after a night of heavy drinking?
Weekly.
Weekly? How often during the last year have you had a feeling of guilt or remorse after drinking or about your drinking?
Weekly.
Have you or someone else ever been injured as a result of your drinking?
Yeah.
Was that during the last year?
Yeah.
Okay.
I punched someone in the face.
Oh my goodness.
It was actually kind of funny. Sorry.
We can talk about that after if you're interested in exploring that. I know that what brought you here was kind of a little bit of a confrontation, I think, sometimes.
Yeah.
Kind of exploring that as a behavior when you're drinking definitely can be a good thing to talk about and kind of get to the root of that. Because out of all the things, you know, when we're using alcohol and getting to that point, that can be really dangerous. You know, get you into some really dangerous situations.
I know that. Yeah.
Okay, just one more question. Has a relative, friend, doctor, or another health professional expressed concern about your drinking or suggested you cut down?
Yes.
So looking at this, basically it just kind of gives me a picture of how harmful the drinking behavior is, and it looks, from what I'm seeing in the answers that you gave, it looks like you're kind of at a pretty high risk for some harmful stuff happening in your life. And let me just ask you a really quick, kind of simple question. Do you feel like you might be ready to start making some changes with your drinking behavior?
I mean, yeah, but it's like scary, kind of, because
What scares you about it? Tell me a little more about that.
just because drinking makes me feel confident, and it makes me feel like I don't have to deal with other things. And so I feel like if I stop drinking, that means less confidence, and that means like having to deal with shit. And that's like a really, really scary concept to me. So.
What other stuff do you have to deal with that you feel like might be more intimidating if you're not drinking?
I don't know. I mean, can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
You had said, you know, it's kind of scary. I asked you what scared you, and you had said, you know, going through certain situations without alcohol. So I'd ask you what kind of stuff would feel intimidating to you or scary to you to go without alcohol.
Good question. Are you just going to think about it for a sec?
Sure, take your time. I'm actually just going to go to the other side of my office here and grab a pen. Okay. I will be right back. Sorry, my pen supply is in short order.
My life is. I don't know. I guess just having to like be an adult. Like, if I were to give up drinking, I would need to just start being an adult, and that's just a really scary concept to me because I'm so used to being taken care of, and I'm not ready to be on my own yet. And
so it sounds like responsibility is kind of a scary thing to you. I know you mentioned your parents have been really supportive and helpful, and I think you used the word spoiled at one point, which I think is kind of, you know, pretty funny and kind of self-aware. And
I mean, I'm the baby of the family too. Like, I'm the princess. Like, I have 3 brothers. Like,
oh wow.
So it's, yeah. I mean, I was always
being the only girl must be pretty fun.
Yeah, it is. I mean, well, that's the reason why I kind of get whatever I want, but at the same time, I think it might have set me up for failure a little bit.
How so?
Because I just don't know how to do anything. Like, I don't really know how to be independent, and I don't know. And I developed a drinking problem because of it. I mean, clearly, like, I don't know. Don't all alcoholics, like, isn't there like a reason, like, didn't, you know, since something happened in their childhood that made them become that way? Like, it must be the fact that my parents spoiled me. Like, my parents didn't discipline me. They didn't set enough limits with me. So that must be the reason. Like, maybe, I don't know, from like a psychological perspective, maybe, like, you know, my drinking is a result of me seeking out, like, something. Like, maybe my parents, like, gave me material things, but maybe, I don't know, maybe they didn't hug me enough. Like,
it sounds like you have a lot of kind of insight, and that you've probably thought a lot about kind of why you have a drinking problem right now. Is that pretty accurate? You've kind of given a lot of thought to it.
yeah. I mean, there's nothing else. I mean, I don't do anything else. Like, when I'm drinking, all I do is drink and just, like, sit in my room, and so then, like, that just gives me the time to reflect on why I'm drinking. So I developed a lot of
Theories.
ridiculous insight.
Well, I
yeah.
will say that, I don't think everybody's drinking problem is necessarily, people have them for different reasons. Sometimes, yeah, sometimes it is something in your childhood. Sometimes it's something that happened as an adult. Sometimes it's just you start drinking, and people come in here for all sorts of different reasons. And one of the more common things is you just kind of don't realize it's getting there. People don't. One thing I've noticed with, substance abuse is that people don't choose it. People don't sit there and decide, oh, I'm going to become an addict today. It's a behavior that kind of develops over time and really kind of gets hold of you before you realize it. And then once you're at that point, you kind of look back and you're like, how did this happen? And people will look for reasons and want to know why. So it's interesting that you're kind of like looking back and trying to figure out, why this happened. And one thing that I think is really important at this point is to kind of start using that insight you have to look forward a little bit and see, you said you might be willing to start making some changes. So what I'd like to do now, if you're interested, is kind of, I have this worksheet that I like to do with people. It's usually really helpful for people. So basically when we think about making changes, it's kind of hard to look at all sides of the situation and kind of identify, what really needs to happen. A lot of the times we think about what we should do, and we kind of avoid things that feel difficult. I know you said that sometimes thinking about being an adult is really scary, and that you're probably avoiding some of those tasks and some of those things involved with being an adult by drinking. So what I want to do is kind of look at the idea of making a change in your drinking habits and not making a change. Those two things. If things were to stay the same and you were to keep drinking exactly like you are now, and if you were to make that change, either stop drinking or cut down quite a bit, and then kind of look at what would be different and what the pros and cons would be of each of those. Does that sound like something you'd be okay with doing?
I think so.
Okay.
Sounds a little intimidating, but
What sounds intimidating about it? Tell me about that.
I don't know. I know I said earlier that I have a lot of insight and I think a lot, but that's just thinking. I know when I'm thinking on my own and when I'm being insightful on my own, I don't have to take the steps to fix it in a way. But the fact that I'm in therapy and you're telling me all these things, which is great. It's the reality is sinking in that I need to make the changes. So
well, just so you know, I hope this makes you feel more comfortable. We're just at a first appointment today. This is just a really basic, easy kind of, I don't mean easy, but it's a very beginning stage of things. Okay, so we don't have to make any huge changes today. This is just kind of to give you an idea, give you a picture that you can kind of go home with, and not a physical picture, but you can kind of go home and think about these things and think about what it might be like. I don't expect the next time you come in that you're going to be cured like that, or that you're going to be, really ready to do everything immediately. So you don't have to feel pressure on that end to kind of change things right away. This is just to get you thinking about what that would look like for you.
yeah.
So hopefully that maybe makes it a little less intimidating for you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'll be fine. I'm sorry. I hope I didn't
Oh no, not at
demean
all.
your
No.
intentions.
No, not at all. I think it's really intimidating for people to come in here to begin with, and with substances there's a lot of shame involved, and people feel embarrassed for the things they do and embarrassed for where they're at, and thinking about changing anything is tough, and thinking about changing substance use is probably one of the toughest things when you think about changing, because people see it as a choice.
Yeah.
But once you get to the point where you're out of control, it really isn't a choice anymore. And I understand that, and I'm happy to kind of go as slow as you need to here. I just want you to feel comfortable. So let's talk about what some of the benefits would be to making a change in your drinking. We're going to think about the whole picture. So let's talk about maybe work, friends, family, relationships, self-esteem.
I'm sure my parents would be happy. I'm sure my friends would be happy. I wouldn't feel so, cause like nothing's worse than that feeling of being hungover like all the time.
So what I'm hearing you say, parents and friends would be happy, and physically feeling better.
Yeah, I'd probably lose a little weight because I drink a lot of beer, and I put on like 20 pounds in the last couple of years. So maybe I would just be healthier, I guess.
So physically feeling better, healthier. Okay.
Maybe like, because by not having alcohol available, maybe I would just feel like I have to do something else. So maybe I would just get a hobby or something. I don't know. Find something. I would have to find something to kind of take my mind off of the fact that I'm not drinking. So maybe that can be a good thing.
2 dead pens. I can't believe my luck today. Okay. So these are some really good things. What else? Think about maybe legal consequences, things like that.
Oh yeah, that. I probably wouldn't be in so much. I mean, I wouldn't be in this position that I'm in right now. I wouldn't be making an ass out of myself in public. I'm sure more people would want to be around me if I was sober and just having fun and having a normal conversation.
So maybe it sounds like kind of increased, like maybe feeling better about being social without drinking. I kind of, tell me a little more about that. I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly on that point.
I mean, I think, like, yeah, like I feel like I need alcohol to be social, but at the same time, I think just, even if I'm being antisocial, at least if I were in a bar and, like, not drinking, like, if I was just sober, and even if I was being still antisocial, I feel like that's better than, like, you know, being trashed and, like, rowdy and, like, mouthing off and getting in people's faces.
Being yourself a little more.
Yeah, I guess. Not that myself is great or desirable to anybody.
I think it probably is. I think you might be selling yourself short. You seem pretty awesome to me.
No, thank you.
Anything else we can think of? Got a lot of good stuff here. What about goals? Like things that you might like to accomplish. Tell me about some of those.
I guess I want to go to college. I mean, it seems a little bit late now.
Never too late. I went to school a little later myself.
Really?
Yep. All my friends started right after high school, and I had a rough time myself. So I didn't get into my bachelor's degree until I was in my early to mid 20s. So I think it's never really too late. My mom is actually just thinking about going to college right now, and she's in her mid 50s. So I think that anybody can do it if they really want to.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would go to college. I don't really know what I would study though. I want like a job, like, I don't know, I want a job where I can like look nice every day, like, but like I'm not, you know, I don't know if I could be like a business person because I'm not really good at math, but I don't know, maybe even go to like hairdressing school or something, like beauty school, like, I don't know, I used to be like really into makeup and hair and stuff, and like I love like when I go out on the weekends, like dressing up.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. I think one of the things about being sober or being at least less under the influence is that we start to kind of think about things and rediscover things about ourselves that are kind of hidden when we're drinking a lot. You know, drinking or using kind of keeps you in that place of not feeling good about yourself. And when the substances are gone, there's more room for other things to come in. So you might find that as time goes on, you know, if you do decide to make some changes, you know, that you might find it a little easier to figure out what you want Or you might feel more comfortable about not knowing what you want. Just something to think about.
That's true. I want my own apartment too, definitely, but just to kind of be on my own. Like, I just want to learn to do things on my own without my dad having to help me with everything. Like, I got into like a little fender bender the other day, and I didn't know what to do. Like, I had to call my dad, and like I didn't even know like where the registration was. Like, I didn't know about the whole like exchanging license number. It was just like, it made me feel like so stupid, because the girl that I was in the accident with was like my age, and she knew everything, and I'm like, God, why don't I know this?
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the potential negatives if you were to make a change with your drinking habits.
I just don't think I would be as confident. I would have to face my problems like head on, and I wouldn't be able to like kind of mask them. You know, just like facing reality, like having to do things on my own and possibly failing is scary. Like, it's almost easier to kind of not try rather than try and fail.
I understand that feeling. It's pretty scary to think about not having that crutch, not having that thing that's comfortable to you. Yeah. Anything else you can think of? Negative?
I wouldn't really have a lot to do on the weekends. Like, I wouldn't be able to go out. Like, when I go out, like, to the bars and stuff, like, that's something to do. And obviously, if I can't, like, if I stopped drinking, I wouldn't be able to go. So I think my weekends would be pretty uneventful.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Let's say you were to not change your drinking habits and you were to keep everything exactly the same as it is now. What would be the benefits to that?
Just not having to face reality. Having to do things on my own would be scary, and just having to find new people to hang out with and just deal with my problems, I guess.
I think we might have gotten a little messed up. We were trying to figure out what would be the good things about not changing. So staying the same.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Don't worry about it. No worries.
My mind, I have so much on my mind.
I know. We can kind of pick this up later if you're feeling like you might need to stop for a while. Is that alright? Is that kind of what you're feeling? Maybe a little overwhelmed? Yeah. That's okay.
Like I need a beer.
I know, that's a pretty tough feeling. Tell me a little more about what's on your mind right now. What's kind of coming up as you're thinking about this?
I'm really just thinking honestly about how I need a drink. I just think this is kind of a lot for me. I feel like I can't really focus. Like, I mean, you're asking like really good questions and stuff.
It's okay to be feeling anxious. It's okay to be kind of uncomfortable with the process. This isn't going to be an easy thing to do, but I think that you're taking an amazing step by coming in and really being willing to kind of talk with me. You've done a lot today already. I mean, you've told me about a pretty difficult event that happened. You've kind of opened up and been pretty honest about your alcohol use and how that's affected you, and you know, all the details involved with it. And you know, we've gotten through a big part of this thing, you know, this inventory I like to do and kind of look at what a change would look like or what it wouldn't look like, and I think that can bring up a lot of anxiety for people. So I think what you're feeling is probably pretty normal, and I don't think you need to worry so much about it, and I'm certainly not judging you. So why don't we, if it's okay with you, wrap it up for today, and then the next time we meet, and I hope we do get to meet again, next time we meet we can look at this again and kind of revisit that part of it.
Okay, that sounds good.
And we can talk a little more about kind of what's happened in, you know, in the time period since I last saw you, and kind of see if there's been any kind of changes in your thoughts.
Alright, that sounds good.
Alright, it was really nice to meet you.
You too, thanks.
Take care.
Bye.